it's one of those stories that still sounds pretty extraordinary. No matter how many times you hear it, it still does sound like that. A float featuring giant caricatures of Orthodox Jews sitting on piles of money was allowed to parade through the streets of a Belgian city last weekend. The Jewish groups, they were quick to argue that there's simply no justification for these stereotypes to be on public display under any circumstances. The group behind the float say they didn't intend to offend anyone and that the carnival parade is simply a festival of caricature. But the Ulst Carnival did not stop at Jewish stereotypes. You can see on your screen it featured people dressed up in what looked like KKK outfits as well, while others were wearing a blackface. Now, the EU Commission responded to the Carnival parade, which took place just a couple of dozen kilometers from where we are here at the Parliament. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
It should be self-evident that such images parade in European streets. It is unthinkable that these images parade in European streets 74 years after the Shoah. As always, of course, it is for national authorities to take action on individual cases on the basis of applicable law. The Commission's position is and will always be very clear. We stand firmly against all forms of anti-Semitism.
All right, now let's just put a little context here, because this carnival, it is a yearly carnival here in Belgium. It is UNESCO-listed intangible cultural heritage. Before I go to you, Mark, I know you're Belgian. Just when you look at those pictures that we saw earlier, is there a place for something like this in modern Europe, and knowing the context that this is happening in? I guess I'll go to you first, Julia.
So yeah, I think what is important to highlight is why it's offensive and extremely offensive for Jewish communities and Jewish people, because the stereotypes that we see there are age-old. They started in the Middle Ages. We saw them in the pogroms at the end of the 19th century, through the Nazi era. Even today, when we open social media or the internet, we see conspiracy theories about wealthy, greedy Jews that are globally controlling the world and economy and all that. So it is still nowadays hurtful and impacting Jewish communities and individuals, which is the reason why we find it extremely upsetting to see it.
Yeah, and that was it was not just, you know, that anti-Semitism float. We saw, you know, those white hoods, and then we saw pictures of black faces. Okay, Mark, I'll go to you, because this is a Belgian carnival. So this is a reaction from someone, you know, who would be watching from the outside. You know, it's quite extraordinary. So
yeah, which I understand.
Put us in put it in context.
Yes, but I understand, and let me say first, anti-Semitism is a growing problem. We should denounce it, like homophobia is still a problem, and so on. But of course, your reaction is of one that didn't see the whole carnival. It's a bit out of the context. You should see the whole carnival, and then you should understand what this is all about. These are three-dimensional caricatures, and it's a very special carnival. I live in Halle, which is another city that has a carnival as well. The nicest carnival of all, of course, but no, this is quite different. It is a special kind of satire and humor, and they laugh with everything. And you know, also with politicians. I can see my own caricature there, or my party leader, religions, and they can all feel offended, of course.
Yeah.
But they are not. Not one of the 80,000 people who attended the carnival had a problem with any of this.
Just to add to what you're saying, because we did get in touch with Ulst's mayor, and he said that the carnival is satire, and it's only ever been censored once, and so basically it was a Dutch statement. He was saying that people are essentially taking it a little too seriously. Are they,
yes.
Dharmendra? So you think you agree with that, but
absolutely.
I would
Dharmendra.
disagree. Don't forget, Ulst has this every year, as do many parts of Belgium, but also parts of Europe have these festivals. In Scotland, I remember being at the head of the Commission on Racial Equality, where we banned such festivals because they carried, you know, people dressed up as gollywogs, for example. Culture and tradition can't be hiding places for racial satire and racial stereotyping in the times we live in. We also know these are meant to be community festivals. How can a community festival have the kind of images you've seen? But also, think for a moment, the children that watch this, that will go into classrooms, will see people of difference and call those people different names. There's a link between those things.
They will see lots of other caricatures as well.
No,
you should
indeed.
Yeah, you should see it in the context, and it is not meant to hurt anybody. It is not meant to stigmatize.
But when you look at those figures, with all due respect, when you look at those figures,
you can debate on whether this is good taste or not good taste, but you cannot censor you know, a carnival.
Okay, let me
Because
just bring...
this will just not work, I
Okay,
think.
before I let you speak, Julia, because let me just bring in the fact that UNESCO did list it as a cultural heritage, so there's to your point, but they also issued a statement today saying UNESCO condemns the racist and anti-Semitic representations at the carnival in Als. So they issued that they said that the indecent caricatures go against the values of respect and dignity embodied by UNESCO. So there's the 2 points. Sure, it's culture, there it is, they're backing it, and
but
yet
culture and tradition evolve. We live in a modern 21st century society where we've learned the lessons of what that kind of imagery does in terms of racial violence and discrimination.
Okay, Julia,
please. This is the wrong comparison. This is comparing apples with lemons, really. This has nothing to do about putting stereotypes there in the market. It's a carnival. You can see caricatures of priests, Catholic priests, of nuns. Should they be offended as well, then? Is it also targeting...
Okay,
no,
Julia,
it
jump
is
in.
not.
I just want to add, like, in terms of context, because as for the Jewish community, what we see is rising anti-Semitism. So, of course, when we see the statistics, when we hear stories from our friends and other organizations, we all realize that this is a reality for many people now. And when we see imagery like this, we're all reminded that, you know, it's being recycled and it's there all the time. So in terms of looking at, but let's take that I understand that the intent there is not to cause offense, but it's also not the first time that it happened during the Als Carnival. It happened 5 years ago when they had the Nazi wagons with SS soldiers.
Intention is not the issue. Okay. Intention is not the issue, it's the impact. And whether you believe it was not motivated, it's not meant to be offensive. The reality of the world we live in is that those stereotypes, we look at those images, just that
it might have been acceptable at some point in history, but not
now.
You know what I mean? Sure.
We know what the impact of those images are. And all of those people in that community that are trying to celebrate community, what kind of images and messages are you giving to generations and your community about what you think is acceptable?
And in terms of impact...
But to be honest, then you have to ban the whole carnival. Because they are laughing with everything. They are not targeting one special part of the population.
But does that make it okay? If we're racist towards everybody, that's fine because we're racist equally towards each other.
It's not about racism. It's not their intention to be racist. It's their sense of humor and of satire.
Okay. But I think I think it's an important question. I'm sorry to interrupt. Whether there's this message that they wanted to transfer, which was about things are getting more expensive.
This is not what these people are concerned with. They are trying to build a party. It's not about disseminating messages.
So where is the line? Where is the line?
They are not preoccupied about messages.
Where do we draw the line then? Where do we draw the line between what is caricature, what is acceptable, what is culture, what is fun, and what is offensive? And where do we draw the line?
I can tell you honestly, you shouldn't tell the people of Aalst whom they can laugh with or can't laugh with, because this will not work.
So you will accept anything?
So think for a moment, why don't we have now increasingly a public awareness of not having the parading of nude women and in ghastly situations and being stereotyped? You don't have that in your parade, OK? So that's what I'm saying is the question here is you make a conscious choice of what you satirise in these contexts. And actually, it's out of touch and out of step to suggest that actually you can hide in tradition and culture to suggest it's OK to love everybody.
So you are suggesting that there are some topics that are off limits and that will not appear in the carnival like this.
So this kind of censorship, this is a kind of censorship. Sorry, this is a kind of censorship that you are promoting now that we can never accept, because.
I think it's about rights and responsibility, not censorship at all. This is about doing the right thing by your community and what you believe in terms of equalities. And we know enough, we know too much about the implications and the consequences of images like that and the messages they communicate on the ground.
I'm sorry, you don't understand carnival. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry to say so. You don't understand what a Flemish carnival and Als carnival is.
But I think there are many ways to laugh about something, and here we might need to revisit how we approach different topics.
Are you going to tell people of Als how they can laugh?
So I think can people make that decision?
Yeah, if they meant to, you know, make
I think the EU has other priorities, you know, to.
Then they probably need to think other ways, like how they can transfer the message.
Okay. Fiery topic, unfortunately, and we do. In fact, we do have a lot more to get through today. Unfortunately, we've run out of time on this topic, but you know, very interesting discussion. Okay, let's move on.